if you have children, then you need to listen to this video. It's only about 10 minutes, guys. There's a documentary out in the UK at the moment on Netflix called Car Crash, Who's Lying? I saw it last night. Now, I don't have kids, but I've got nieces and nephews. It's an amazing documentary. It investigates a car that's spun out of control on a dark country road, and one of the occupants in the vehicle is killed. Young boys. Now, young men in the country, in the UK, are overwhelmingly more likely to die in road accidents than they are by being murdered or beaten up or drugs or anything like that. It's overwhelming. The reason this resonated with me, guys, is because where it happened was somewhere I used to drive when I was very young. It's in my hometown, Portsmouth. In fact, the car was, I think the accident happened in a little village called Southwark near Fareham. I used to drive that route the whole time. Portsdown Hill, if you know Portsmouth at all, there's a hill that goes across from Fareham to Portsmouth. You can sit on the hill near the Chichilian pub and you can look at the lights of Portsmouth. I used to go up there the whole time. My mum lives in Waterlooville. My sisters live in Southsea. I was down in Portsmouth last weekend and I was actually in Paulsgrove where these young men came from. I was at a Catholic church service. My nephews and my nieces were getting confirmed. So I'm well aware of the area and I'm also well aware of the people. I want to talk about a couple of things here. Just stay with me. The first thing I want to talk about is this program, and we'll cover that. And then the other thing I want to talk about is about social mobility, or the sincere lack of it, especially within the military. So, because I think these boys, if they'd had other opportunities, this would not have happened. Now, two of them went to jail for a very, very long time. I don't want to ruin the documentary for you. And one of them was killed. My father was a police traffic officer for about 35 years, over 35 years. He was the guy that would have been attending these, he attended so many accidents. He actually developed alcoholism and died back in 2011. But he used to come home talking about the accidents that he'd attended that day whilst he's drinking whiskey, whilst he's drinking beer, as I grew up, and he'd just talk about it, just talk it out. I obviously developed alcoholism later in my life, and I've spoken about that already. I don't want to go into that. But he would then draw the plans. So back in the day, a police officer, the police traffic officer, would also be the accident investigator, and he'd draw with these fine pens and he'd sketch out. And I remember the ones where there was a motorcyclist and he'd draw an arm and he'd draw a head and he'd draw the bike and all these things, and they would be submitted into court to show how the accident happened. So the documentary itself is about an hour long. And it starts by going into the families. It's an emotional thing. Paulsgrove, I went to school there in a school called St Paul's. And as I said, last weekend, I was down there at a church service and I met Mrs. Pescops, who was my old head teacher at the school. And I met the new head teacher as well. And she showed me around the school how it is now. It's a fantastic little school, St Paul's. If anyone knows Paulsgrove, you know it. And she showed me the classroom that I used to sit in. I used to make aeroplanes out of a pen and a ruler and fly these airplanes around whilst looking out at the M275 and the M27, which of course was the motorways that access Portsmouth, between Portsmouth and Southampton, and the roads that my father used to patrol as a police traffic officer. Now, he was based out of Cosham, Fratton and Fareham. What's so interesting about this is, well, not only how violent accidents in cars really are, and we don't fully appreciate speed. If you've got a young person, it's well worth putting them on like another course. Once they've done a learning driving course and they've got the P plates on, they're going to throw that car around. If they're a young boy, they're going to throw it around. They're going to test the limits. They don't know where the limits are. And if there's another course you could put that young person on to show them where those limits, or in fact show them this documentary, because the young men in it are humbled young men without the opportunities that, well, it's probably the same opportunities as me, but without really opportunities, I think now, I think I had better opportunities than they do. But I understand them because I'm from the same area. So, and I went, as I said, went to school in Paulsgrove, so I understand it. Alloway Avenue, the shops there, I understand the housing estate. I understand suburbia because I grew up there. My wife, I live in the country now, trees and shit, right? My wife loves it in the country because she grew up in the country. We live in the country, but I feel more comfortable in suburbia. And it basically is the guys go out on a drive. It's late at night. And I'm not going to ruin it for you, but they lose control of the car. And then it's, the police come, it's fascinating. They've got the body camera footage, the fire engines are there. One of the guys, obviously unconscious, they try, well, two of the guys are, they try and resuscitate one. And one of the guys does die, and I will leave it at that. I'll leave it there. I don't want to ruin it for you. But then it's the driver says initially that he was driving, and then he says that he wasn't driving, and it's an investigation about how the police work out who's telling the truth here? Was he driving or was it someone else? And they have to go through footage of petrol stations and everything else. But the thing I want to talk about really, and I did the same routes they did. They talk about going and sitting on a hill and looking at the city. I did that as well. I used to go up there, smoke some drugs with, it wasn't really drugs. I think we learned that bird seed had hemp in it or something. So we used to crush all the hemp up or whatever, try and smoke this bird seed whilst looking at the city going, oh, I'm so, stuff you do when you're a kid, right? Because you know what you're doing. But I also wasn't academically gifted, and these people weren't either. So the opportunities for this social class of people, which I fully understand them very well, was very limited. Now, the reason I say this is because I've had emails recently from police officers that worked with my dad. Big up, Jeff. All right, thanks for your email. I've written back to you, by the way. So I used to work with my father. So police officers writing, oh, Taft Davies, he was at Cosham, was he? He was at Fareham, was he? Oh, he was at Fratton, was he? A lot of people know my father, which is really nice and really, really good for me because, I do miss my dad, obviously, as I'm sure we all do. But also, the reason that I talk about this is because I had an email come in from a Special Forces guy who used to train a lot of these Special Forces guys up at Hereford, and I live up near Hereford. This guy's overseas, and he wanted to talk about social mobility. And he's got a really valid point. The issue that I've got, guys, I work on facts, not feelings. So I asked him for some statistics. Have we got any data? What he was saying is social mobility into the military is not what it was when he went into the parachute regiment. He had no qualifications. He didn't have a house. He was living on the street, this guy I spoke to, this Special Forces guy, who's now retired, obviously, and he's working overseas. He said that can't happen nowadays because we don't have the careers offices like we used to in the same volume. We can't walk in off the street and speak to someone and say, I'd like to join. We have to use a computer. A lot of these young people haven't got access to computers. They haven't got access to phones. You think everyone has a phone. It's not true. A lot of people have phones that aren't, they aren't the type, they haven't got the smartphone. So they're literally having the type. They haven't got internet access. I know it sounds ridiculous. What do you mean they haven't got internet access? They don't have internet access. They might have cellular access, but they can't fill out a form. So they don't even know about the military. The military, when I joined, was about social mobility. So I got an N and 2 E's at my A-level. There was no future for me. I didn't come from the best background. I'm not that guy, right? There's no victimhood here. But my father managed to put 4 of his kids through university on a policeman's salary. He was only ever a PC, never became a sergeant, never became anything else. He was a PC, put 4 kids through university. And my mum was a health visitor, so not big money at all. And all 4 kids went to university. My sister's now become a consultant psychiatrist in the NHS, a consultant, right? She's a consultant. My other sister is a police officer. My brother is an airline pilot out in Emirates. You know what I mean? How achieving are these people? And there's me running a small business, you know what I mean? But how achieving are these people? So there was mobility there. There was social mobility. Like the military would take people. The Navy took me with an N and 2 E's A-level. I went and did an H&D at university, and then I scraped a 2-2 Desmond on a degree. But the military still went, yeah, you can come and fly airplanes. The Navy did that. I don't think that happens nowadays. But I did have the ability as well to go into a careers office. I walked in and I spoke in a careers. Hello, mate, I'm thinking about joining the Navy. Yeah, definitely, mate, let's have a chat. It doesn't happen like that anymore. I speak to guys in careers offices. They're staying the same. Things have changed. So this Special Forces guy was saying to me, look, I don't think a person in his position, he was saying, could get into the military and could go through the parachute regiment and could join the Special Forces and have a really long career. You had to lie about certain things. You had to kind of tell him you had an address and use a mate's address and stuff. And I thought, all right, let's get some statistics on this. And I'm struggling to find, I found some. I'm struggling to find them. I said, I can't work on your feelings. I said, I know you feel that social mobility in the military is ended or is ending. And there is statistics that do state that we've got more officers now and more senior NCOs than we have people in the lower ranks. I found those statistics. If anyone's got these statistics, throw them at me. Because I feel the same thing. I don't feel the military is there anymore for people like these young men who featured in that documentary about the car accident. I don't think it lends itself to them whatsoever. I really, really don't. And I think if it did, these people may not be out racing around on the streets, because we all do it. They had a Nissan Almera. What a great car. So they're out for a drive. £10 in the fuel tank. I did the same thing. Went to Portchester, get the fuel. I know Portchester. And then they went for a drive over the hill road and lost control of the car. Horrific accident. But other opportunities could be there for them, and they weren't. The military doesn't seem to be open anymore for that level of social mobility. You know what I'm about? We need to get young people into houses. We need houses for young people. We need these houses. We need relationships for the young people. And then we need jobs for the young people. And once they've done that, they'll be interested in building a better country. And if we don't do that, if we consistently look outside the country to bring in people to do the jobs for us, we're not going to have that. We're not going to have the ability to grow these younger people into something that's worthwhile, that's proud of themselves, and can actually give something back to the country. And I think the military was a great place for that. I don't think it is anymore. Have a watch of the documentary. If you've seen it, let me know in the comments what you think. I wanted to put this out because I just want to kind of warn parents, like, watch this documentary. This could be... My father told so many mums and dads about the fatality and the death of their young people on the roads. I wrote an essay about it. I'll put it down here. I wrote the essay years ago called Death on the Roads. My dad used to say to me, he used to say, Tim, look, what happens is when people die, it's not a weekend, it's like a Tuesday afternoon. It's like a rainy Tuesday afternoon. In this particular case, I think the death notice was served at like 3 or 4 in the morning. I mean, shit's messed up. And so the essay I wrote was about that. Was about, you know, death happens when you're busy making other plans. You don't think about it, and then bang, someone's gone. Your wife's gone, husband's gone, kid's gone. I'll put a link to the documentary here. I don't think it's available outside the UK. You can use VPN or whatever, but again, it's an hour-long documentary. It's worth watching. I'll try and get some facts on that social mobility, because that SF guy, he's got some valid points, and I really want to follow up with some hardcore data to show that we're heavy in the officer ranks and we're light in the ranks that really matter, which is the ones that get our young people, you know, out of poverty in effect, and put them up the social ladder and drive them up into doing something worthwhile they can be proud of. Appreciate it, guys. As always, anything, just hit the comments. Tim Davies, Fast Jet Performance.